That's a beautiful picture from here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on this Friday afternoon in the auditorium of our university. My name is Rianne Letschert and I'm the Rector Magnificus of our beautiful university, very young university. And I am delighted to welcome you today to celebrate the appointment of Paolo Balboni as Professor of Privacy, Cybersecurity and IT Contract Law at our Faculty of Law. And the title of his inaugural lecture is Personal Data Protection as the New Competitive Edge, Generating Socially Responsible Corporate Behavior. Now, the tradition at this university, at least since I'm here, so we should call it a tradition by now, third year, is that I always start with saying a few words about the newly appointed professor. And now we also go back to actually quite a long time, because we were also both at another university, Tilburg University. There are many Tilburg colleagues here, which is quite nice. Three Tilburg professors and are now professor here. So you see, everything that's good comes from Tilburg. That's maybe, that's maybe the, no, I'm kidding. Eh? I should be able to make one joke about Tilburg University. Eh? I never did it, but with so many Tilburg colleagues here, I think, let's not put it on Twitter, by the way, before I get fired here. Paolo studied comparative commercial law and international law at the University of Bologna and then earned his PhD in ICT comparative law from Tilburg University. And that's indeed where we first met. And he was very much already then ahead of his time. The title of his thesis was Trust Marks, Third-Party Liability of Trust Mark Organizations in Europe. Mind you, that thesis was completed in 2008 and touches on many topics that have now become independent research fields. So he was either a visionary or very, very lucky indeed. Paolo stayed on as a research associate in Tilburg, while at the same time working as an associate at Baker & McKenzie. When he left Tilburg's Institute for Law and Technology, TILT, his academic and footballing performance was very much missed. Did you know that? After that, they didn't score anymore. His reputation as a man of the law and an athlete stands to this day, despite rumors of him defying the smoking ban. Still a natural athlete. I also was told by some of the spies that I used to inform that you ran the New York Marathon without training for it. Now, Jan and I are both, we like to run, well, he really is a runner. I'm a fake, but I'm trying to do it. But you do it without a training. Okay, I need to know in the reception how you do that. Then I can maybe also do many more. Anyway, Paolo is Cloud Computing Sector Director and responsible for international affairs at the Italian Institute for Privacy. He's also one of the founders and the lead auditor for ICT legal consulting. So he's dividing his time between Maastricht, Amsterdam, Brussels, Milan and Bologna. And all the while finding time for his wife Chantal and his 4 children. And they have beautiful names, and my Italian is terrible, but I will try. Giada, Aurora, Damiano, and Orlando, or Orlando probably. That is a lot of different hats to wear, but he all wears them in style. Paolo is used to it. Even during his PhD, he was traveling between the Netherlands and Italy. And his knack for languages certainly stood him in a good stead, because Paolo speaks 6 different languages. He has picked up Dutch in more or less 2 weeks, helped only by his natural brilliance and some nuns. And that's where we all learn another language in 2 weeks. He is obviously very serious and passionate about his work, but he's also a very nice, amicable colleague, someone who makes a genuine effort to be part of the academic community. Now, Paolo came to Maastricht for a visiting fellowship at this university, at the European Center on Privacy and Cybersecurity in 2017, and he was instrumental in setting up the ECPC, having been involved in everything from designing courses to developing strategy. He became an extraordinary professor of privacy, cybersecurity and IT contract law, and an extraordinary professor he is indeed, even though he's now technically an ordinary professor. So you made a wrong decision maybe because of the change in title now. Now that, of course, my dear audience, is only a very vague outline of Paulo's career, but you can see what I think is a unique blend of an excellent academic, a charismatic teacher, a very experienced practitioner of law, and an entrepreneur who has built up his own law firm. And because of all these qualities, his enthusiasm, his energy, and his vision, we are obviously delighted to have Paulo here at Maastricht University. So please join me in welcoming to the stage our newly appointed professor of privacy, cybersecurity, and IT contract law, Professor Paulo Balboni. The floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Paolo Balboni, and I'm Professor of Privacy, Cybersecurity, and IT Contract Law, and I'm a business lawyer specialized in the same subject matters. Today, at my inaugural lecture, I would like to introduce you to part of the research activities that I would like to further develop at Maastricht University in a multidisciplinary setting, including law, technology, data science, social science, and economics, leveraging both my academic background and my practical experience as business lawyer. Personal data protection as a new competitive edge, generating socially responsible corporate behavior. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the data gold rush. This is how Mrs. Nelly Cruz, former Vice President of the European Commission, responsible for the digital agenda, defined our society in 2014. Not only we have more data at our disposal than ever before, but we have access to a multitude of ways to manipulate, collect, manage, and make use of it. The key, however, as Mrs. Cruz wisely pointed out, is to find the value among the multiplying mass of data. The right infrastructure, the right networks, the right computing capacity, and last but not least, the right analysis methods and algorithms help us breaking through the mountains of rock to find the gold within. I will briefly discuss with you first the economy of personal data, then personal data protection issues and observations, third, data protection as a corporate social responsibility. The goal here is to trigger a virtuous data protection competition between companies by creating an environment that identifies and promotes data protection. Data protection as an asset, as opposed to merely using data as an asset, which can help the same companies in their adherence to the principles of data protection to responsibly further their economic targets. The economy of personal data. Data is fundamental driving factor in a paradigmatic change from a product-based to a service-based economy that we are currently witnessing, where processing and analysis of personal information lie at the very core in what we call a data-centric economy. In this context, the European Commission has recently highlighted that data is rapidly becoming the lifeblood of the global economy. It represents a key new type of economic asset. Those that know how to use it have a decisive competitive advantage in this interconnected world through raising performance, offering more user-centric products and services, fostering innovation, often leaving decades-old competitors behind. One should pay attention to the fact that here the focus is on data as an asset, as opposed to data protection as an asset. This data-centric economy has led to the creation of new services, with companies offering the ability to harness the power of information to others. See, for example, data centers, where data is stored and analyzed using computational capacity offered by cloud service providers. Data are now a valuable resource for many companies. With the proper technology, companies can harness a large amount of information in order to draw relevant conclusions regarding past and current activities, as well as draw prediction for the future, the so-called phenomenon of big data and analytics. This can potentially allow them to better develop, advertise, and sell products and services. In the word of the European Commission, the main advantage of big data is that it can reveal patterns between different sources and data sets, enabling useful insight. Let's think, for example, of health, food security, intelligent transport systems, energy efficiency, and urban planning. These ultimately allow higher productivity and improved savings worth 425 billion. And by 2020, big data analytics could boost European economic growth by an additional 1.9%, which means a GDP increase of 206 billion. It is noteworthy and cannot be ignored that the top 5 most valuable companies on the Fortune 500 are data companies: Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, Facebook. This is a relatively recent shift, where just a few years ago, the list was filled with energy companies, for example, Exxon and Chevron. And it was just in 2016 that, for the first time, the list prominently included tech companies. Let's see how exactly the data economy works in practice. For example, Netflix uses big data analysis to anticipate customer demand, mapping previous offerings against customer preferences and the success of those offerings in order to predict the next big hits. Adam Sandler is an actor who has received his fair share of criticism. He probably does not come to your mind as one of the most popular actors in the world. However, in 2014, Netflix signed him on for a 4-movie exclusive deal and extended the deal for 4 new movies in 2017. Why? Because of the data. Since the launch of Ridiculous 6, Netflix members have spent more than 500 million hours enjoying films of Adam Sandler. Amazon uses big data analysis, for example, to tailor the advertisements served to online customers and to improve customer experience. Starbucks uses big data analysis, for example, to determine the potential success of each new location they plan to open, taking into account information available on traffic, demographics, and local customer behavior. Google's search engine relies extensively on big data analysis, for example, to sift through millions of websites in order to locate the most relevant results it can for its users. As to tools and techniques, it is worth mentioning, for example, data management platforms, which are platforms with the ability to structure databases, collect, organize, and maintain raw data, allowing companies to analyze those data and extract usable, understandable information. Programmatic advertising as a method of using an automated system to bid on and buy and sell advertisement space through smart contracts. And behavioral advertising, the technique of using information collected about the behavior of individuals online in order to show advertisements to them, which are believed to be relevant for their preference and interests. This most commonly involves the use of tracking technologies, such as cookies, web beacons, and tracking pixels. But sometimes things can go wrong with the algorithms. And this can have a huge economic impact on companies. For example, in 2017, Coca-Cola, Walmart, and General Motors announced plans to suspend or move spending away from YouTube because ads, in some cases their own ads, were appearing alongside offensive content. It is noteworthy that according to The Economist, Google's own brand has suffered with damages to its sales that could be as high as $1 billion in 2017, or around 1% of its gross advertising revenues. Shares of its parent company, Alphabet, have fallen by 3%. Let's now look at personal data protection issues and make some related observations. Algorithms not only process personal data, but may, increasingly with artificial intelligence, autonomously take decisions that affect, for example, someone's financial circumstances, such as their eligibility to obtain credit, insurance premiums, employment suitability, or putting individuals at serious disadvantage. Algorithms can also shape human culture, social, political, and religious development by consistently displaying specific and targeted information content to achieve a determined cause. The main EU legal sources granting data protection to individuals are the General Data Protection Regulation and the e-Privacy Directive forthcoming EU regulation. In order to explain what big data and analytics mean from a strictly personal data protection point of view, I will borrow the four-step life cycle of personal data described by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Step 1, collection. Step 2, storage. Step 3, analysis. Step 4, usage. The value is actually created in step 3 and step 4, because data are analyzed to reveal patterns and enabling useful insights on which business takes decisions. For example, to better develop, advertise, and sell products and services. However, step 1 and 2 are absolutely fundamental and instrumental to it. If data are not accurate and kept up to date, collected and enable such analysis, which in privacy terms amounts to profiling activities, and processed in a lawful way, a company will never achieve step 3 and 4, and thus never extract the value from them in a lawful way. So from the data protection point of view, compliance with the privacy principles, especially data quality, purpose limitation, accountability, the provision of transparent, easily accessible and intelligible information to individuals, and the identification of the appropriate legal basis, for example, consent, performance of a contract, legitimate interest where applicable, etc., are absolutely instrumental to the creation of the value that qualifies data as an asset. Therefore, it is more accurate to state that data per se are not an asset. They can only become a real asset if collected and processed in a way to lawfully enable a company to extract value from them. From the perspective of a company, it is important to have a strategic and accurate approach to data protection compliance in order to collect personal data from the start in a way that enables further lawful processing activities. Effectively, the difference for a company between dying buried under personal data and harnessing their value is directly related to the privacy compliance management. A strategic and accurate approach to data protection can generate a significant return on investment. However, what about real customers, consumers, data subjects protection? As previously explained, two fundamental pillars of data subject protections are still privacy policies and data subject consent. Interestingly enough, on privacy policies, the New York Times recently published the following results. Quoting, "The average person would have spent 75 working hours reading all of the digital privacy policies that they agree to in a span of a year. Reading Amazon's terms and conditions out loud will take approximately 9 hours. Why would anybody read the terms of services when they don't feel as they have a choice in the first place? It is not as a user can call up Mark Zuckerberg and negotiate his or her own privacy policy. Then I agree button should have long ago been renamed whatever." On consent, let's see this short clip from the documentary Democracy, from an event on data subject consent on the 11th April 2012 at the European Parliament, hosted by Jan-Philippe Albrecht, the GDPR rapporteur, where I presented an academic paper on the subject matter.
Mr. Baldoni, I would like to start by reacting to something you said, and it's often mentioned that personal data are the money of the digital economy. Well, what is happening today, and what the regulation is, future regulation would like to address, is that people are simply taking money from your pocket without asking for your consent, without letting you know how much you pay, and where the money goes to. So if that's the example, that's the problem too. So consent is a core issue.
I try to turn the question, or let's say, to have the discussion from a very practical point of view. How difficult or how easy is to get consent from a user? I'm a business lawyer, and hardly enough, I have to say, that consent is one of the easiest things to get on the internet.
When you are purchasing a ticket to fly somewhere, if you purchase this ticket on a time pressure, or just because you are excited and you want to have that price, then you won't even read what you are consenting about. So what is the value of consent? We need to operate a shift. Somebody needs to take care of privacy and data protection, and this somebody is not the data subject because it does not know anything, does not have time, is not interested. So if consent is a barrier, and consent is not per se a guarantee of data protection, then it's better to look somewhere else. We need to acknowledge that it's not anymore the action of an individual deciding for data protection. This is about technology. This is about machine interacting one to the other. So I think that should be the shift in a way of thinking about the reform. And I personally don't see it in where we are now.
This was 2012. It was then that I started thinking about the concept and dimension of data protection as corporate social responsibility. Why? Because it was evident that by publishing a privacy policy, which nobody reads, and collecting data subject consent, which is very easy to get, companies were allowed to lawfully carry out very intrusive profiling activities, capable also of producing legal effects or similar significant effects on individuals, without data subject effectively being aware of it. And this is, unfortunately, still largely holds true. Data protection as part of corporate social responsibility. No present or forthcoming legal framework, whether it be new competition rules or EU much discussed GDPR, will ever be able to effectively regulate our data-centric economy while also perfectly maximizing the benefit for citizens and effectively minimizing risk for individuals. Regulators and institutions can no longer be the police of the internet. The European Data Protection Supervisor, the European Commission, and the Council of Europe have confirmed the necessity of data processing that takes ethical and value-based models into consideration, pointing towards the development of virtuous compliance that goes beyond what is strictly prescribed in the law. More precisely, the European Data Protection Supervisor recently stressed that the extent to which humans can enjoy their fundamental rights depends not only on the legal framework and social norms, but also on the future of the technology at their disposal. Recent discoveries of inappropriate use of personal data have driven the public debate on data protection to an unprecedented level. It is necessary that shaping and the use of technology takes account of the need to respect the rights of individuals rather than being driven exclusively by economic interest of few businesses. That was reported in the opinion on privacy by design. Let's see a couple of examples to better understand the situation and the relevant key concepts. Cambridge Analytica. In 2018, the UK Data Protection Authority published a report that provides details with respect to the Office of the Information Commissioner, Elizabeth Denham's investigation of the widespread use of data analytics in electoral campaigns. The report largely focused on Facebook and Cambridge Analytica as targets of the investigation as a result of their failure to safeguard the information of individuals, allowing the data of an estimated 87 million users to be harvested without their express knowledge. The relationship between ethics and data protection can be successfully illustrated through the example of the Cambridge Analytica case, in which the original purposes for the profiling system developed by the Physicometrics Center of Cambridge University had the potential capability of leading to useful academic, societal, and business insight concerning psychological targeting as a tool to influence behavior, something that is undoubtedly important to understand. Such technology, and specifically algorithms, however, also present significant risks, as they have been effectively transformed into a means to influence democratic process, essentially hampering the fundamental principle of democratic society, which must be protected. In fact, technology is neither good, bad, or neutral, as Melvin Kranzberg wisely pointed out. It is now possible to create an algorithm that is capable of predicting individuals' behavior, and the logical consequence of this technology is improved regulation on the part of the legislation, and responsibly on the part of governments and businesses. The duty of lawmakers, politicians, and digital businesses is to ensure that such incredible technologies are used in a fair way, so to respect fundamental rights and freedoms, and to grant dignity to the digital society. We are all familiar with the concept of data protection by design and by default, as they are laid down in Article 25 and Recital 78 of the General Data Protection Regulation, and encourage organizations to build technical and organizational measures into the design of their processing operations, as to safeguard privacy and provide data protection from the start. Additionally, this means, by default, such entities ensure that personal data is always processed with the highest possible level of privacy protection, meaning that only necessary data are processed and such data is not stored for more than necessary, and only relevant authorized people have access to such data. Data protection by design and by default is intended to be one of the most effective ways to fully achieve compliance with the fundamental data protection principles as they are established in Article 5 of the GDPR. The time, however, has arrived to go one step further, towards the concept of fairness by design. While fairness relates to balanced and proportionate data processing. In line with this principle, organizations should take into account the interests and reasonable expectations of privacy of data subjects. The processing of personal data should not intrude unreasonably upon the privacy, autonomy, and integrity of data subjects. And organizations should not exert pressure on data subjects to provide personal data. Fairness goes beyond what is strictly prescribed by the law, taking into consideration an ethical dimension, as already discussed. Like data protection by design, it should be built into the very design of data processing activities, whether they are products, services, or applications. And most importantly, the algorithms that underpin the information, the data processing, should be designed and developed in a way that is compatible with the concept of fairness by design. Fairness by design may be seen as further specification of the principle of data protection by design, aimed at complementing the legal with the ethical dimension of privacy and protection of personal data for the development of a healthy and democratic society. A second example, digital out-of-home advertising. Have you ever heard about digital out-of-home advertising? Probably not, but it has most likely seen you, without your consent and without you even realizing it. The world of advertising has made incredible progress thanks to the digitalization of something as simple as billboards. Shopping malls, airports, and train stations are full of strategically placed digital out-of-home boards that provide you, traveler, consumer, with real-time targeted messages of which companies are able to measure impact and drive return on investment. Digital out-of-home has experienced constant revenue growth over the past years and has successfully revolutionized advertising as consumers become increasingly more mobile in terms of both devices and time spent out of home. Digital out-of-home software is capable of monitoring how many people are in front of a display and how long they look at it, and is able to obtain data such as gender, approximate age, and identify features such as eyeglasses, beards, mustaches, and perhaps most incredibly, gauge emotions, all without the bystander even knowing that their data is being collected. Companies, like for example large retailers, take advantage of the technology which can help understand local consumer behavior. Every day, new technologies do not only create challenges to citizens' fundamental rights and freedoms, they also create societal benefits. For example, the NHS launched a digital out-of-home campaign to highlight the life-saving power of blood donation amplified through online and social activity, including canvas advertising for Facebook, sponsored posts on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and organic social activity. Concluding, more transparency is definitely needed concerning these and similar technologies, which are increasingly ubiquitous. However, the point that I want to make here is not about mere legal compliance of the fact that digital out-of-home advertising is challenging citizens' privacy and data protection rights. This is obvious. As I already mentioned, we need to go one step further. Data protection should be understood as part of corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility is defined as the commitment of businesses to contribute to the economic and industrial development, while at the same time improving the quality of life of the workforces, families, communities, and society as a whole. The time when companies were able to consider data protection as a mere compliance obligation is in the past. Instead, in this data-centric world, businesses need to consider privacy and data protection as an asset that can help them to responsibly further their economic targets. In fact, privacy has become a business requirement. As the White House stressed in 2014 in the document Big Data and Privacy, a technological perspective report to President Obama, the effective use of technology can successfully leverage the benefits of big data while at the same time limiting risks to privacy. This, however, in my opinion, can only be done at the company level. Sound corporate policy can allow for data processing in a responsible and sustainable way, furthering the potential of data to improve human existence. It can be used to challenge climate change and to create medical cures we never thought were possible. Data, if correctly and responsibly used, have the power to change the world and make it more respectful for human beings, animals, and the environment. Therefore, my explorative proposal is that all companies participating in a data-centric society need to act in a socially responsible way by complying with 5 main rules of socially responsible data protection, regardless of the normative control. First one, embed data protection and security in the design of processes. Second, be transparent with citizens about the collection of their data. Third, balance profits with the actual benefits for citizens. Fourth, publishing relevant findings based on statistical, anonymized data to improve society. Fifth, devote a portion of revenues to awareness campaign for citizens with regard to the data-centric society. I would further propose that companies acting according to such principles be awarded with a seal, trust marks, to be displayed on their sites, media, materials, and products demonstrating that they act responsibly in the data-centric society. Of course, independent quality checks concerning the respect of the 5 controls of socially responsible data protection should be in place. Communication and awareness campaigns need to be carried out in order to familiarize the stakeholders with the concept of socially responsible use of personal data. In this way, virtuous company will be recognized by consumers, by data subjects, leveraging data protection as corporate social responsibility as a competitive edge. Data is the present and the future, and instead of regulating alone, we must push for data protection to be considered as a genuine aspect of corporate social responsibility. We need to do it not only for the rights to privacy and data protection, but also to safeguard other rights and freedoms impacted in a data-centric society, such as, for example, freedom of expression, freedom of movement, right to participate in our society, etc., especially for youngsters and future generations. Finally, I would like to thank a number of people. First and foremost, thank you to Director Magnificus, the whole Executive Board, and the Faculty Board for entrusting me with this chair of Privacy, Cybersecurity, and IT Contract Law. I positively feel the responsibility of it, given the centrality of these matters in our society. And I will do my utmost best to repay your trust. Then I want to thank a number of colleagues who played an essential role for me to achieve this academic role. Professor Franco Ferrari, who triggered my attention to commercial comparative law, topic in which I graduated. Professor Paul de Herte, back in time he was a PhD student, who taught me privacy at Tilburg University. Professor Maurits Barendrecht, who selected me as PhD student together with Corinne Prince in the area of comparative ICTO. They must have seen something that I could not see, beyond my skills in football and organizing epic parties. Maurits also taught me the value of developing your own point of view on academic matters. My colleague at Tilburg, Andrea Pinna, who taught me how to write a paper. Professor Willem van Boom and Professor Ivo Giesen, that very patiently supported me as supervisors in my PhD. Francesca Gaudino at Becker and McKenzie, who taught me how to practice privacy law. Andreas Mitrakas from ENISA, who selected me in the cloud computing workforce to carry out all the legal work around cloud computing, giving me a tremendous opportunity to specialize myself in a very hot topic. Luca Bolognini, my partner at ICT Legal Consulting, who is developing with me an international law firm, competing with the top in class at the international level. Cosimo Monda, who approached me years ago to teach privacy, despite my young age, and believed in me as a professional. He also created the SCPC, where now I can carry out my academic activities. Cosimo is a visionary person, and I'm sure that we are just warming up with the center. Hildegard Snyder, Jan Smith, Gijs van Dijk, I want to thank you to have welcomed my candidature as a professor at Maastricht University. I also want to thank all my colleagues at the ECPC for their constant support, especially Joyce, and my colleagues at the faculty and the department level. My friends have also been tremendously important in this journey. I want to specifically thank Giovanni Cucchiarato for all the good times. We have started at the University of Bologna, and we are still here. And Antonio Frizzi, as a great friend from Tilburg to Milan. Sebastian Bulita and Nemanja Janša, for all we have done in the Tilburg times, the thing that we can say and the one that we can't. my friends in Amsterdam, who welcome me in this new city very warmly since the beginning. Last but not least, my family. My parents, who taught me that nothing is impossible if you work hard for it. My wife, Chantal, who provides me her unconditional love and support, regardless of the crazy ideas and plans that I come up with. And of course, my kids, Damiano, Orla, Gigi, Aurora, to whom I want to dedicate this inaugural lecture. Ik heb gezegd.
Thank you very much, Professor. This went very well, huh? I think you are happy now that we are getting ready to go to the reception area. Thank you, Paolo, for a wonderful inaugural lecture on a, I think, a highly relevant and topical theme, where also our university is still struggling to comply with all the rules that are in the regulation, and sometimes we get lots of critique from our colleagues that we are putting also guidelines on our departments that we have to fulfill. So we probably need your expertise much more than we are already using. So thank you very much. This brings us also to the end of this academic ceremony. That means that we will go to the reception area where you can congratulate the newly inaugurated professor. And I would kindly ask you to give preference to the guests and the professors in the cortege. Thank you very much and have a wonderful weekend.